morning, my name is Katie Thomas and I am the owner and the head designer for KatieDid Florals. I am joining you this morning to show you how to make a sunny pot arrangement. I know we were supposed to meet in person, but this is the next best thing. So I'm just going to show you some of my tips and tricks. I grow a lot of my own flowers around the garden and I love container growing because it's portable. I actually sometimes start perennials in containers and then move them to other places in my garden. My philosophy is you can never have too many containers. You'll see here I've actually done 2 shade containers that go on my front porch. Over here, I'm starting something in a container, and then I have some smilax that I'm starting over here in this container, and I've rooted vegetables and ivy in this container. So I'm a big fan of starting things in containers and then moving them to your garden, or just keeping them in containers just to add a lot of pop of color to places around your home. So the first thing I always like to tell people is you actually need a lot of soil. It almost should be kind of like it's overflowing. So the soil I like to use, I got this at Big Bloomers in Sanford. It's called Jolly Garden. They actually make this soil themselves, and it's really affordable for this giant bag. The myth that you have to have Miracle Grow or other really expensive potting soils is just not true. You can supplement these soils a lot less expensively, and you'll still have beautiful plants, annuals and perennials. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually show you some of the fertilizers that I use. I use these in my garden, and I also use them in my pots. Put on your handy dandy garden gloves. You take a little handful of this. This is a bedding plant fertilizer from Fertiloom. At the end of the video, I'll have all this information for you written out where you can get it, but I also got this at Big Bloomers. And then bone meal. Bone meal is the best stuff. It's an organic fertilizer. Pretty much every single type of plant tolerates it, and it just enriches your soil and helps grow stronger roots. So, and it's a powder form, and you just sprinkle that in, and then just give it a little bit of a mix, and mix it around. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the plants that we're going to be using. The first plant we're going to be using is actually called a spike plant. These are easily found. I got everything that we're using today at Big Bloomers, but you can find these at Lowe's or Home Depot or other garden centers. These are great because it's going to add a height to your planter and give it some textural and visual interest. The second type of plant I'm putting in today is actually going to be your classic petunia. So these are annuals. They will fade, but the great thing about petunias is they will last through fall if you take care of them. They don't like super wet soil, but you can put them in planters and even put them in your yard, and they'll continue to bloom and continue to grow. They're just a great workhouse. If you really wanted to keep them all winter long, you can always bring them inside and continue to treat them nicely and then bring them back out in your garden. They just can't tolerate a frost, so that a frost will kill them. The next thing I'm putting in is actually this beautiful licorice plant. You don't see this too very often. I did find it at Big Bloomers here in Sanford. What I like about this licorice plant is it's going to give us some visual interest down on the front of this arrangement. Once this grows, it'll trail down the front. It'll be really beautiful. It also has a great scent to it. The next thing we're going to be putting in is a citronella plant. So I like to use citronella, especially in the summertime, because it has a great scent. It's great to put on your back patio. People do think it keeps away mosquitoes. I'm not so sure how true or not true that is, but it can't hurt, right? So it also has a lot of pretty visual interest in this bright green color, and I love the way a citronella leaf smells. You can actually take the citronella and pick off a leaf and even rub it on your skin if you do want to have some citronella on you. It's completely organic and not toxic and will not hurt you. So the spike plant goes in the middle. That gives you visual interest and height all the way around your planter. The next thing I'm going to put in is these petunias, and you'll notice that this is actually a little root bound. So what you're going to do is you're just going to massage these roots. And another thing that I should have mentioned earlier, but I didn't, is I always water my plants first before I put them in. And nothing is more harming to a plant than to have it be dry to put it into dry soil and then just shock it with a bunch of water in its new environment. So the best situation is to water your plants first. So with something like this that's kind of got a low leaf cover, I'll actually hold it kind of toward the base real gently. I dig holes with my hands. If you have a spade, you can use a spade. I think this is just an easier way to do it. And then just gently lift it around the edges and gently push your soil around the top, right like that. Okay, and so then what I'll probably do is I'll probably stick in the next petunia. So arrangements like this are usually best if they're done in odds. So you'll notice that we're putting in 5 plants today. And I'm going to put this one right here. I'm going to put the other petunia right here. The licorice plant is going to go in the front. And then the citronella plant is going to go in the back. And then I actually have some ivy that I rooted here that I'm probably going to throw in, getting us to 7 actual stems. 5 big plants, 7 actual growing things. So don't be afraid to make a mess. It's going to make a mess. There's no way around about it. Again, massage these a little bit if you need it to fit into your hole. Go ahead and stick that in. Cover it up nicely. And there you go. Shift them just slightly so there is room for our licorice plant. Here is our licorice plant. Super cute. And we're going to stick him right here in the middle. And don't be afraid to make room. So these are potted plants. And it may seem like you don't have a lot of space, but just go ahead and kind of get them in there. And then you can always push the dirt back on top. I'd rather have my space filled in than not. I don't like a lot of empty space in my pots. I feel like pots are usually temporary and they look better if they're fuller. A lot of people I feel like don't put enough plants in their pots. You want to be able to see them from your road or your driveway as you're coming by, so they need to be full and have a lot of different types of foliage. Okay, so here's our citronella plant. He is going in right here in the back, and actually he's kind of loose, so I'm going to shake some of this off and then dig a little hole for him. And this is a sunny arrangement. Again, just reminding you that this is a sunny arrangement. All these plants like the sun. That's something else to keep in mind when you're planting things. Make sure that you plant like plants together. So here's the ivy that I've rooted. You can get ivy pretty much anywhere, and people will tell you that ivy is a shade plant. Ivy will literally survive anywhere. It's virtually almost like a weed. You can't hurt ivy. You can pull ivy apart. I actually root all my own ivy every year because it's so successful in my planters that it gets too big. This ivy actually came from the planters that you saw earlier in the front of the, and there you have it. So the next step is just to check and make sure everybody is in here good and everybody has enough space. That ivy root will actually get pretty big, so I'm leaving a little bit of space on either side of that because he will kind of take over. Then we're going to give it a little bit of water, just a sprinkling to clean up the leaves, because they kind of, videographer there who I just got some water on. That would be my 13-year-old son who's helping me out today, who knows technology better than I do. So the final step that I like to do is actually put moss into the planter. This actually protects your soil from erosion when you water. It also keeps your soil wetter longer, especially in a environment where you're going to have sun. The citronella smells so good. I wish y'all could smell it. It smells amazing. And then it also gives everything kind of a finished look. So this moss is actually a dried moss, and you can get dried moss pretty much anywhere. I get mine from my floral wholesaler, but you can get it at Hobby Lobby. A lot of times they'll have it at Home it is dried, so it is not living, so it will not root or do anything or affect your plants. It's just a nice way to finish off this planter and have it have a really beautiful finished look. And don't be afraid to kind of tuck it under. And the great thing about moss too is it's completely breakable and you can make it into any size you want, and you can kind of stick it wherever you need it. And then, just so my moss does not blow away on a windy day, the first thing you also want to do is just put a little bit more water on the top of this just to hydrate everything and give it one last good little soak. But remember, we watered our plants before we put them in, so it's not necessary to give them too much. You just want to wet the soil around. And that is your sunny planting arrangement.